Yeah.
Kind of going off a Sandusky interview, I wanted to ask you about that. How do you prepare for an interview of that magnitude where it's not just the sports world? It really was the biggest story
Yeah, I
in our
didn't look
country.
at it as primarily a sports story.
Right. But then also, how do you, with the answers he was giving you, which many people think, and everyone would agree, was one of the most riveting interviews that people have watched in recent memory, how do you first counteract the answers he gives you, which you definitely weren't expecting some of the answers he gave you, and then be able to keep your emotion out of it and stay objective?
Well, I had prepared to interview his lawyer, Joseph Amendola, who came up from State College, and we thought that was a pretty good get in the midst of the story, which was just beginning to break as a national story. And then, only about half an hour or so before I wound up talking to Sandusky, Amendola says to me, "What if I could get Jerry on the phone?" And my first thought was, this is really not a good idea for you. But what I said was, that's a great idea, because it was for me. And so a lot of the information that I had digested in preparation for interviewing Amendola, I just redirected towards Sandusky. And a lot of people have asked me the question that you asked about keeping emotion out of it. And that was something that I was mindful of, because I believed that if I betrayed my reaction to any of it, because a lot of people said they were watching it and they were revolted by it, you know? But that was up to them to decide. It was my job to ask what I thought the pertinent questions were and elicit his responses. And then, at least in that moment, I've been asked to comment about it subsequently, but in that moment, let people draw their own conclusions. So if body language or facial expressions had betrayed how I was feeling, I think it would have undermined the interview. The peculiar challenge of it was that since he was on the telephone, and they didn't really have any B-roll, the only thing that they had, instead of me just listening to him, was the occasional still picture of him, and they only had 3 or 4 of them on file. So a disproportionate amount of the time was something you never see on television, which was just me looking into the camera and listening to him. But I was aware that even if I nodded my head the way you naturally do, you don't have to agree with somebody, but you just nod your head to say, yeah, I'm listening, I'm following what you're saying. If I did that, that would have been interpreted as agreement or support. So I had to do something that's actually unnatural. It's unnatural in conversation, just with your friends, to like just kind of stare straight ahead, don't move your eyes from side to side, don't look down, don't change your facial expression too much, just poker face it all the way through. That part was actually, to me, the most difficult part. But when people said, you know, how do you keep your emotion out of it? That part was easier because I was concentrating. You know, they were absorbing it sitting at home. But I was listening to every syllable he said because I had no idea how he would respond. And then I wanted to be able not just to ask the questions I had thought I might ask, but to respond with follow-ups to what he said. So that was kind of, you know, you get kind of locked in. I was more locked in there than in most broadcasting situations.